وامنن علينا برضاه وهب لنا رأفة ورحمة ودعاء وخيرا ما ننال به سعة من رحمتك وفوزا عندك واجعل صلاتنا به مقبولا وذنوبنا به مغفورا ودعانا به مستجابا واجعل أرزاقنا به مبسوطا وهمومنا به مكفيا وحوائجنا به مقضية وأقبل إلينا بوجهك الكريم واقبل تقربنا إليك وانظر إلينا نظرة رحيمة نستكمل بها الكرامة عندك ثم لا تصرف عنا بجودك واسقنا من حوض جدي صلى الله عليه وآله بكأسه وبيده ريا رويا حنيا سائغا لا ظمأ بعده يا أرحم الراحمين وصل الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم ارزقنا توفيق الطاعة وبعد المعصية وصدق النية وإرفان الحرمة وأكرمنا بالهدى والاستقامة وسدد ألسنتنا بالصواب والحكمة واملأ قلوبنا بالعلم والمعرفة وطهر بطوننا من الحرام والشبهة واكفف أيدينا عن الظلم والسرقة واغضض أبصارنا عن الفجور والخيانة واسدد أسماعنا عن اللغو والغيبة وتفضل على علمائنا بالزهد والنصيحة وعلى المتعلمين بالجهد والرغبة وعلى المستمعين بالاتباع والموعظة وعلى مرضى المسلمين بالشفاء والراحة وعلى موتاهم بالرأفة والرحمة وعلى مشايخنا بالوقار والسكينة وعلى الشباب بالإنابة والتوبة وعلى النساء بالحياء والعفة وعلى الأغنياء بالتواضع والسعة وعلى الفقراء بالصبر والقناعة وعلى الغزاة بالنصر والغلبة وعلى الوسراء بالخلاص والراحة وعلى الأمراء بالعدل والشفقة وعلى الرعية بالإنصاف وحسن السيرة وبارك للحجاج والزوار في الزاد والنفقة واقض ما أوجبت عليه من الحج والعمرة بفضلك ورحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وصل الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد رحم الله من قرأ سورة مباركة الفاتحة
फ्राइडे ज़ियारत इमाम महदी साहिबुज़्ज़मान अलैहिस्सलाम। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मदिन व आले मुहम्मद। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। अस्सलामु अलैका या हुज्जतल्लाहि फी अर्ज़िही, अस्सलामु अलैका या इनल्लाहि फी खल्क़िही, अस्सलामु अलैका या नूरुल्लाहिल्लज़ी यहतदी बिहिल मुहतदून व युफ़र्रजु बिही अनिल मुमिनीन। अस्सलामु अलैका अय्युहल मुहज़्ज़बुल ख़ाइफ़, अस्सलामु अलैका अय्युहल वलियुन नासिर, अस्सलामु अलैका या सफ़ीनतन नजात, अस्सलामु अलैका या ऐनल हयात, अस्सलामु अलैका सल्लल्लाहु अलैका व आलि बैतिका अत्तय्यबीन अत्ताहिरीन, अस्सलामु अलैका अजलल्लाहु लका मा वअदका मिनन नस्र व ज़ुहूरिल अम्र, अस्सलामु अलैका या मौलाया अना मौलाक, आरिफुन बि औलाक व उखराक अतक़र्रबु इलल्लाहि तआला बिका व बि आलि बैतिका व अंतज़िरु ज़ुहूरका व ज़ुहूरिल हक़ अला यदैका वस्अलुल्लाह अन युसल्लि अला मुहम्मदिन व आलि मुहम्मदिन व अन यजअलनी मिनल मुंतज़रिन लक व ताबिईन व नासिरीन लक अला आदाइका वल मुस्तशदीन बैन यदैक फी जुमलति औलियाइक या मौलाया साहिबज़ ज़मान, सलवातुल्लाहि अलैका व अला आलि बैतिका। हाज़ा यौमुल जुमअति व हुवा यौमुकल मुतवक्कउ फ़ीहि ज़ुहूरिक वल फ़रजु फ़ीहि लिल मुमिनीन अला यदैका व क़त्लुल काफ़िरीन बिसैफ़िक व अना या मौलाया फ़ीहि ज़ैफ़ुका व जारुक व अंत या मौलाया करीम मिन औलादिल किराम व मामूरुम बिज़्ज़ियाफ़ति वल इजारति फ़अज़्ज़िफ़नी व अज्जिरनी सलवातुल्लाहि अलैका व अला अहलि बैतिका अत्ताहिरीन। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मदिन व आलि मुहम्मद। सलवात।
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له ولي من الذل وكبره تكبيرا. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولله الحمد. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن مولانا أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن مولانا ومبتدانا وحادينا بالحق مولانا أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. حي على خير العمل. حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل
أحسنت. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فوضوا أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ونعم المولى ونعم النصير. والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. وقل رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتاب الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى. صدق الله العلي العظيم. زينوا مجالسكم بالصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. My respected elders, brothers and sisters in Iman here in Florida, across the globe, wherever you're hearing my voice, Salamun alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Question: why are we here? As we stand at this particular moment and this cusp where we have commemorated last night and today in the day the shahadat of the 11th Imam, we are living in an environment where at the same time we are coming towards the end of the Ayyam-e-Azaa, that is, there's no true end to it, but for this particular year. And then we're coming towards a moment of Eid al-Zahra, which we will commemorate tonight. And in this environment, we find a very important element for us to look at and for us to analyze. And that is, why are we here? What are we doing here? What's our purpose here? And one requires us to think about this. Therefore, in the moments that we have together, the brief moments on this Jum'ah, this day of Jum'ah, which we are told is a special day for the Muslims and the believers in particular, I want to look at a few things, especially the gems from the ahadith and the traditions of the Imam. And I mentioned last night as well that during the time of this particular Imam, that is the father of the Imam of our time, that is our 11th Imam, he laid the foundation for much of the work in ahadith. And in some of his traditions, we get some of the most invaluable guidance that one can think of. What are some traditions that the Imam gives light to that can give us guidance in our day-to-day life? For example, the Imam is attributed to have said, it is attributed to the Imam. Remember, the Imam only lived for 28 years in this world apparently. 22 to 28 is his Imamate, 6 years' time. And in this time, he gave us jewels and pearls of wisdom. And in that wisdom, for example, he says that worship, true worship, is not excessive prayer and fasting. No. That has its place. The Imam is saying, true worship is not always doing namaz and always doing saum or fasting or roza. That has its place. But the Imam says, no, true worship is to think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to ponder on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The question that you and I ask is, in our hustle bustle life, this fast-paced world that we live in, where I have work, where I have school, where I have my family commitments, where I have my community commitments, where I have so many things going on in my life, do I stop to think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my Lord, my Creator? Why am I doing all of this? What is my purpose? What's my end goal? What's my end result? Where do I want to get to at the end of my life? Therefore, the key tradition of the Imam that I want to come to now is this. And in this tradition that I want to share with you, that I'm about to share with you, are some of the gems and the bezels and the secrets of wisdom. What does the Imam say? Imam al-Askari, in this tradition, he says that your lives are short and your days are few, and death comes unexpectedly. Whoever sows good will reap happiness. Whoever sows good into the ground, plants good, will reap happiness. And whoever sows evil, they will reap regret. Every sower reaps what they sow. Now this is the hadith of the Imam. But what are the jewels of wisdom? The Imam said, look, your lives are short, your days are few, death comes unexpectedly. What you sow is what you get in life. If you sow good, you get good and happiness at the end of the life. If you sow evil, you get evil at the end of the life, regret at the end of your life. What's the wisdom? This hadith has the secret to success in this dunya and in the akhirah. You may ask how? You may ask why? How is it possible? What's the reason? What's the basis? Do you know right now in our world, the Nobel Prizes have just been given out in economics, in medicine, in sciences and chemistry and literature. They're being awarded in Europe as we speak. Do you know where the Nobel Prize came from? Do you know who it's named after? Do you know what the story and the history of it is? Alfred Nobel, the one who these prizes are named after, and this award is given every year to people in literature, in medicine, in economics, and various other sciences. They give $1 million prize to the winners in each respective discipline, and sometimes there are multiple winners. For example, in economics, there were 3 winners this year, and things of this nature. But how did it happen? Who was Alfred Nobel? How did he establish this prize? How did he establish this reward? Alfred Nobel was someone who was very wealthy. He became very wealthy in his life. How did he become very wealthy? About 150 years ago or so, he made his money building TNT. You know TNT, dynamite, explosives? That's how he made his money. He was a chemist. And he made a lot of money by selling this at that time. He invented it. And you can research this on your own. What happened was, Alfred Nobel's brother, not himself, Alfred Nobel's brother was sick in France, and he was dying of illness. And when he was recovering, imagine you're this wealthy person, you have this brother who's not doing well, you can afford to take care of them, and you have them in the best hospitals of the time. And at that point in time, when his brother's health was declining, at some point in time when his brother's health declined, eventually he passed away, he expired, he left this world. When he left this world, the next day the newspapers throughout Europe had a headline. You know the headline? What's the biggest news of the day? The headlines in the newspaper the next day said, "The merchant of death has died." Because the newspapers thought that not Alfred Nobel's brother, but Alfred Nobel himself has died. And so they published that the merchant of death has died. When Alfred Nobel realized his brother has died, he has survived, but he read the newspaper the next day, he was in shock. He said, hold on a second. I did all of this chemistry and science, and he never stopped and paused to reflect, what will I be remembered for when I die? And while he was alive, he saw exactly what he would be remembered for. He got a shock. He said, I cannot let this be my legacy for life. That I die and people will say, this is someone who profited off of other people's deaths. He established the Nobel Prize till this day. The question I ask, and I relate this to what the Prophet said, who we will commemorate next week inshallah in his birth. The Imam is telling us this, and the Rasulullah, his grandfather, said the same thing, Mutu qabla an tamutu, die before you die. What does it mean? Ya Allah, I understand. Ya Rasulullah, I understand that you'll die, we'll all go into the grave, but what's the death before that death that you're talking about? And the ulama say, this is talking about the death of the ego. That ego that we have within us, what really dies when we die? It's that ego. Therefore, stop and pause and look in the mirror today, tonight. What will I be remembered for this world? You know, this is in this dunya. You know Apple computers, the devices, you have iPhones, you have MacBooks, you have these devices. Steve Jobs would look in the mirror from every other day or every 3 days or 4 days, and he would remember what the Greeks used to say. The Greeks used to say what? Memento mori. Memento meaning what? Remember. Mori what? Your mortality, your death. Remember it. Because when we remember death, we realize how short our life is, and we begin to see the big picture. Why am I here? How will I be remembered? Remember one thing. The Imam Askari says in this tradition, whoever sows good will have happiness at the end of their life. Whoever sows evil at the end of their life, they will have regret. Think about all of those people who came and went. Think about Fir'aun. Think about Haman. Think about Shaddad. Think about Yazid. Think about these people for a moment. That in one moment they thought that they would get this dunya and this world. And in trying to get the ends of this dunya, that is trying to get power by any means necessary, they lost this dunya and they lost the akhirah. Is that not true? Did Umar ibn Sa'd, did he not kill Imam Hussein? When they asked Umar ibn Sa'd, why are you killing the grandson of Rasulullah? Why are you killing this individual? He said, I want Rai, which is modern day Tehran, part of modern day Tehran. And what was the wisdom? He didn't get Rai, nor did he get the akhirah. He didn't get either one. Fir'aun, he's causing infanticide. He's killing young male boys who are born because this prophecy that's coming. In alternate years, he was killing all the male newborns. He didn't get this dunya, he didn't get the akhirah. He drowned in the Red Sea, did he not? In this dunya. What did he get in the akhirah? Eternal damnation. Fir'aun, Shaddad, Yazid. Yazid may have gotten the world for 2 days. But do we not say that he's the example of the worst people in our world till today? What did Imam Hussein have in this dunya? The poet says, Takht walon ne muarrikh bhi kharide honge. Muarrikh are historians. The people who had the seat and power, Takht walon ne muarrikh bhi kharide honge. Zikr dunya mein magar sham o sahar kiska hai. That is, those people had seats and they were able to buy historians. But who do we talk about day in and day out? We talk about Ali Muhammad. We talk about the Ahlul Bayt. Did they have any property? Did they have any wealth by the worldly standards? Yes, some Imams did, but they gave it away. We don't revere them for their wealth. We revere them from their wisdom and their good virtues. Believe me, remember one thing. You may have achieved, and I'm telling myself first and foremost, I'm not standing on a pedestal. I'm not saying that I'm above anyone here. I'm saying this to a global. I always have a global perspective here. You may achieve this dunya for a moment, or you may achieve some title in this dunya. I may. But how will I be remembered? Remember, history shows that the truth always comes to light. I'll give you an example. Christopher Columbus The world used to hail Christopher Columbus as this explorer who conquered over South America. He discovered South America. He discovered North America. He did amazing things. That's what history used to say. But what does the narrative now come? The narrative, and when the truth comes to light, people are now saying perhaps the greatest terrorist in history was Christopher Columbus. Do you know what he did to the natives? Do you know what he did to people here? That there are over 100 statues, almost 150 statues in America of Christopher Columbus in America. And everyone's saying the same thing, remove all of them. Because he's a criminal. So for hundreds of years people said this is an amazing person. But when the truth came to light, and the truth always comes to light, people said, what's the point of this person? That he found this or discovered this, but at what cost? At what price? Remember this, my dear brothers and sisters. There's two things, the battle and the war. Never forget the analogy. The war is the big picture. The battle, the war is comprised of the individual battles. We sometimes in life, we lose the war by trying to win the individual battles. Now you may say that the individual battles make up the war. Yes and no. For example, if I am in my family, in my madrasa, in my community, if I am constantly of the belief that my way or the highway, I may get my way, but in the process, I may lose my friendships and my relationships. Imagine you're a husband, or you're a wife for the sisters listening, and you're always trying to win every single argument. You may win the arguments, but your relationship between your husband and wife, is it getting stronger, better, or worse? You may try to, for example, discipline your child at every moment, and discipline is important. However, is the war, is the big picture, are you getting closer to your child or not? You don't want a relationship where the child despises the relationship. What's the big picture? How will you and I be remembered? Jeff Bezos, the wealthiest man, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. These two individuals go back and forth, wealthiest people in the world, do they not? Jeff Bezos, I often mention to you, he came up with a concept called regret mitigation. He read a book entitled The Remains of the Day, and he came forward and said, this book was about a man who spent his whole life doing something, and at the end of his life, he had regret. Why did I do my whole life, spend my whole life on this? And he came forward and said, when Jeff Bezos read this, he said, I cannot have regret on my deathbed. Many people made money, came and went, no one remembers them. That's not the meaning of life. It's what you do with your wealth. It's what you do to make the world a better place. What legacy do you leave behind? So he left Wall Street and he went towards the West Coast and he established Amazon. Because he was trying to reduce the regret on his life. The Imam says, whoever sows good gets happiness, reaps happiness. Whoever sows evil, they reap regret. Do not have regret at the end of life. Do not have regret on your deathbed. This same Imam says, Allah prescribed fasting. Why? What was the reason? You know, we sometimes, we do qiyas. We're not allowed to do qiyas in fiqh, right? Qiyas is what shaitan did. Qiyas is when shaitan said, I will not bow to Adam. Why? Because you made me from fire and you made him from clay. Fire is greater than clay. That was his guess, his conjecture. That's not true. Where did he come up with that? We cannot do qiyas in fiqh. You'll remember the example I gave you some weeks ago. For example, the man who went and took the Maulana in Europe to the slaughterhouse. He said, Maulana, look at this slaughterhouse. These pigs, they eat better. These swine eat better than you and I. They should be halal. They're haram because they're filthy. These are not filthy, they should be halal. He said, Baba, this is not how it works. You cannot do conjecture and qiyas on this. So the Imam explained, unless the Imams explain to us why something is there, then and only then do we know why rulings are there. Otherwise Allah said it, that's why you do namaz, roza, hajj, zakat. So the Imam said, Allah prescribed fasting on you and I. Why? So that the wealthy, Imam Askari says, so that the wealthy feel the hunger of the poor. And they treat them kindly, Imam says. You see, in our world, we've become detached. As we draw to a conclusion, look, in our world, in Western Europe, in America, in Canada, in Australia, there are beautiful aspects of society, positive aspects of society, science advancements, technology advancements, engineering advancements, mathematics advancements, healthcare advancements, advancements that you and I cannot think of. But there's pros and cons of each society. There's positives and negatives. The same way my doctor gives me medicine and says this medicine will help your cholesterol, but it will give you side effects. It will cause dry mouth, fatigue, tiredness, these things. There are side effects to this society. This society that we live in has many beautiful aspects. Well, what are some problems? Some challenges and side effects are individualism. Individualism has pros and it has cons. One of the problems with individualism, although there are benefits, one of the problems is we become lonely. We think self-centrically. We only think about ourselves. We don't think about others. We don't think about what's in the bigger picture. Remember this, tomorrow I may become the president of a Jamaat or a community. Did I focus on what was in the betterment of the community, or did I focus on whether people will respect me as an individual leader or not? The war and the battle, how will you be remembered? Will you be remembered as someone who did good for society or the community or not? Remember this. In your family, in your community, and in life, the war and the battle. The Imam says, don't have regret on your deathbed. Have success and happiness. Your days are few. Make the most of it. Don't let it linger. This same Imam continues, and he says in another tradition, Imam Askari, he says, how bad is the man who has 2 faces and 2 tongues? Imam Askari says, the one who has 2 faces and 2 tongues, meaning what? He has one face with his brother, when he's in front of him, he speaks kindly of him. But when he's behind his back, he backbites and does ghibat of him. And the Imam continues, when his friend, the brother of his, when Allah gives him something, he feels envy of him, jealousy of him. And when Allah takes something away from his brother, he abandons him. How wretched is that person, the Imam says. You see, when we come to Salatul Jum'ah, it's not a ritual. It's to remind myself there's someone left, right, behind me, in front of me, and I'm part of something bigger than I am, myself. We're a community. The question each of us have to ask, week by week, are we getting stronger as a community or not? And if not, why not? Because at the end of the day, Allah may ask me that. You were there at that time, what were you doing for strength? How will you be remembered? How will I be remembered? How will we be remembered? Piety and virtue or otherwise. Don't have regret on the deathbed, as Imam Askari says. Whoever sows something, reaps what they sow. This is the secret to success in this dunya and that dunya. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our worship and our ibadah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time and to allow us to be amongst his companions when he returns. Ya Allah, anyone who's suffering from any illness or any financial difficulty, alleviate them from their difficulty. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal asr. Innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين فاطر السماوات والأرضين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه ونور عرشه أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين رحمة للعالمين أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على وعلى علي أمير المؤمنين وعلى فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين وعلى حسن المجتبى وحسين الشهيد بكربلاء وعلى علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي هججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل. Ibadallah, usikum wa usi nafsi bi taqwallah wa lizumi amrih. My dear brothers and sisters, I invite you and myself to the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Very quickly, I will just mention a few things that are going on in our world. I have to catch a flight myself. I will keep this very succinct in the second khutbah. The first element in our world, as I mentioned, a brother should not have 2 faces and 2 tongues. We should always make sure that we have the best in mind for each individual. This happens at a local level, national level, and beyond. In our world, people are bleeding and people are suffering. In Lebanon, for example, in Afghanistan, for example, and in other parts of the world. Innocent people and innocent blood being shed in Lebanon is before our eyes. Just today, Afghanistan, over 35 in the last count that I checked, of our brethren have been killed in this environment. What are we doing about it? Look, we have to be very honest and very sincere about this. It is the time for action. It is the time to put our boots to the ground and do something. I have family, for example, who has been killed in Shia killings abroad. You have family and relatives who have been killed, for example, or know somebody who has been affected by this. Whether it's in Afghanistan or Pakistan or India or East Africa or otherwise. How many of people from the East African Khoja community do you know? They were killed, for example, in Iraq. This has happened historically over the decades, for example, and others in other parts of the world. I'm not getting into specifics. What are we doing about it? We need to get involved politically. We need to get involved in civic engagement. We need to make sure there are three things. I've spoken to influential people in our communities, and I've spoken to people in politics at the highest level internationally, and they said if you want things to change, you have to get involved in the civic process. And you have to understand how the system goes. We must vote. We must make sure we vote. We must make a relationship with congressmen and senators and talk to them and say, we are concerned about this as American citizens. There are people who are dying in Africa, or for example in Pakistan or India or Afghanistan. People are being affected. What are you and I doing about it? For example, Congressman Keith Ellison, the Muslim congressman who's now the State Attorney General of Minnesota, when he was in the US Congress, in the Senate, at that point in time, he didn't know. Not everyone, for example, in politics is good, and not everyone's bad, and some people are honest, just, sincere people who are doing good. They just don't know. We cannot bottle and bunch everyone up in the same bag. So there was a group from our community of physicians who brought him in and said, look, we are concerned about Shia target killings of doctors and other influential people in Pakistan. Can you please speak about this? We're tax-paying citizens, and we're concerned about this. So he used his 1 minute on the Senate floor, and he said, look, I, as a senator, am representing my constituents, and I'm concerned about these people being killed. Do you know many of the refugees that are coming from Afghanistan are actually from our community, the Shia community? Do you know the people who are being killed are from the Shia community? Money, membership, and mission, these three things, this is what move politics and civic societies. You and I need to get organized. Remember, the sugar lobby, we eat in our world, we eat high fructose corn syrup in America like no other country. In Europe, when I go there, you can't eat high fructose corn syrup. Why? It's not good for your health. Why do we eat it so much here? Why is it in all our foods? The reason it's in all of our foods is because only one reason. The sugar lobby in America is very influential and organized and very resourceful. And they control the price of sugar. And because of that, you and I suffer, and people get cancer and these types of things. You have to get involved in the process through the Sharia. No one's saying bend any rules. No one's saying doing anything haram, not at all. Just speak out for justice. You and I have a platform. Use that for our brethren. One final thing that I want to mention is this movement that has been announced by Pakistan, which is a positive movement, which is called the Rahmatan lil Alameen Authority that they've announced, that they will be establishing. That is to understand what was the vision of Rasulullah from an academic level, from a research-based level. This is something that other Muslim countries should also follow suit on, whether it's in Turkey or others. And others who have already established it, we should understand it. Next week we will be commemorating Rasulullah. What was Rasulullah's vision? And how did he bring the best of the worlds together? That is progress and productivity, as well as this tranquility and the itminan and the sukoon of the heart. But this will not happen until you and I get organized and serious about our activism in this part of the world. We have an opportunity, but it's also a test, and we need to make the most of it, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless this community. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless this state, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless this country and to alleviate the suffering of all those across the globe, in Afghanistan or Lebanon or across the globe, wherever they may be suffering. Ya Allah, anyone who's ill, grant them shifa in this night, in this day. And Ya Allah, anyone who's suffering from financial difficulty or otherwise, grant them alleviation. And Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, and allow us to be amongst his comrades and supporters when he returns. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن علي ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير الأمل حي على خير الأمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. صلاة الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين هم من التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أصفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فأنبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائمة قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد وأرقى وأسجد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله وخير الأسماء لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم عرفني نفسك فإنك إن لم تعرفني نفسك لم أعرف نبيك. اللهم عرفني رسولك فإنك إن لم تعرفني رسولك لم أعرف حجتك. اللهم عرفني حجتك فإنك إن لم تعرفني حجتك زللت عن ديني.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أحسنت. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن علي ولي الله. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. حي على خير الأمل. حي على خير الأمل. قد قامت الصلاة. قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. إن الصلاة والنسك والمحيا والممات لله رب العالمين وجهت وجهي من فضل. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده.
الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد وأرقى وأسجد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. كذلك الله أكبر. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده.
الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله وخير الأسماء لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد وأرقى وأسجد. سبحان الله. سبحان الله. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده.
الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده.
الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد وأرقى وأسجد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمد. ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمد. ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمد. ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. يا لطيف أرحم عبدك الضعيف.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله وخير الأسماء لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا إله إلا الله إلها واحدا ونحن له مسلمون. لا إله إلا الله ولا نعبد إلا إياه مخلصين له الدين وله كره المشركون. لا إله إلا الله ربنا ورب آبائنا الأولين. لا إله إلا الله وحده وحده أنجز وعده ونصر عبده وعز جنده وهزم الأحزاب وحده. فله الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت ويميت ويحيي وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أختك زينب. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا شهداء كربلاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. السلام عليك إمام صاحب العصر والزمان. الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. السلام عليك إمام الإنس والجان. أجر الله تعالى فرجك وسهر الله تعالى مخرجك وزهورك وجعلنا من أنصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كل وليك لحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا قائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا